or take the praise for what it is, or understand that, okay, if I do this, it's gonna be more trouble than it's worth.
That's right.
You know, so I'm on
Def Comedy Jam 25. It's good to see so many funny people together in one room, all wondering the same thing. Is Katt Williams gonna show up?
Nervous as hell right now.
You know what the #1 job of somebody that sold their soul in Hollywood is? It's to act like it didn't happen.
Samuel Jackson. We was in Portofino. We had finished dinner one time. We walking back to go get on this boat. Hey, you're Samuel Jackson. I want to take
A jaw-dropping photo just dropped, and with it, the streets are buzzing over some wild claims made by none other than Hollywood legend Samuel L. Jackson. At 75, Jackson is still turning heads, and this time, it wasn't a movie role, it was his mouth. During a live Q&A, he spilled some piping hot tea about none other than Steve Harvey and Katt Williams. Everyone already knew there was bad blood between the two, ever since Katt's explosive sit-down on Club Shay Shay. But what Jackson shared, it took things to a whole new level. People are now asking, what exactly did Samuel L. Jackson say? And how's it gonna shake up the already messy beef between these two comedy giants?
Stand-up because he got in a comedy battle called the Championship of Stand-Up Comedy with one Katt Williams in Detroit in front of 10,000 people and lost.
Well, buckle up. We're diving deep into what Jackson let slip and what it reveals about this behind-the-scenes drama. Right now, there ain't a single feud in the comedy game that's messier or funnier than the ongoing clash between Katt Williams and Steve Harvey. These two OGs have been throwing jabs for months, ever since Katt aired it all out with Shannon Sharpe. That interview lit a fire under the whole situation. Fans who've been keeping score say Katt's ahead, dropping ruthless punchlines and cutting jabs that left folks stunned. But don't count out Steve, he's clapped back with some slick shots of his own. Still, most thought this whole beef kicked off after that Club Shay Shay talk, but Samuel L. Jackson, he's saying it runs way deeper than that. According to what folks say Jackson revealed, the tension between Katt and Steve didn't just start, it's been simmering for years. And it allegedly blew up at the 2017 Def Comedy Jam reunion. That's when Dave Chappelle gave Katt some major love on stage, and let's just say it didn't sit right with Steve Harvey. The whole room was cracking up. Comedians, audience, even Katt Williams had a big grin on his face, but one person clearly wasn't feeling the vibe: Steve Harvey. Word is the man looked tense, tight-lipped, and low-key salty as the spotlight shifted to Katt for just a moment. You could practically see it on his face. Trying to reel the attention back, Steve jumped in with a weird offbeat comment. "Tss, I'm nervous as hell right now." But Dave Chappelle wasn't having it. He kept right on bigging up Katt Williams, making sure all eyes stayed on the man who's been grinding in comedy for decades. Realizing his first attempt flopped, Steve made another move. "But let me ask you this," he said, "when have you ever seen this many heavy hitters all together? At the same time, in the same room?" Boom. Another spotlight-snatching move, slickly disguised as a casual observation, but the real one saw through it. Now, casual fans might have missed it, but behind the scenes, industry vets weren't blind to what Steve just pulled, and Samuel L. Jackson, he was one of the folks who didn't hold back his disappointment. That moment was Katt's, even if he wasn't on stage. He'd earned it. And trying to swipe the shine like that, folks called it a major low blow. Katt's been putting in work for years, grinding his way through the comedy world. He wasn't just some random in the crowd. He's a certified heavyweight. That was the time to give him his roses, to show some respect. Instead, Steve chose to redirect the energy like he couldn't stand not being the center of attention. Some say he could have at least given Katt his flowers first, then eased the spotlight back his way. But nope, Steve wasn't trying to share even for a second. And it wasn't just Steve acting funny that night. Another name that popped up? Cedric the Entertainer. Insiders say even he made a sneaky move to slide into the spotlight like it was open mic night. Now here's where things get even shadier. According to fans with sharp eyes and sharper instincts, Cedric the Entertainer played it way smoother than Steve Harvey, but that didn't make his moves any less sketchy. While Dave Chappelle was giving Katt Williams some well-deserved praise, Cedric was spotted nervously chuckling like he was just waiting for the moment to pass. Then, right after Steve jumped in for the second time trying to shift the spotlight, Cedric backed him up quick with a loud "yeah!" like he was saying, "Finally, let's move on. Forget Katt."
Let me ask you this. When have you ever seen this many heavy hitters all together at the same time. In the same room.
Cedric's vibe was quiet, almost sneaky, but some folks in the industry weren't having it. Behind the scenes, insiders were reportedly disappointed in how he acted. They felt like Cedric could have at least kept up the act, pretended to be happy for his fellow comic even if Katt wasn't on stage with them that night.
Is Katt Williams gonna show up?
I'm nervous.
And don't forget, this all went down back in 2017, a full 7 years before Katt Williams went nuclear on Club Shay Shay, calling out both Steve and Cedric by name. So now fans are starting to piece it all together and asking the real question. Why were Steve Harvey and Cedric throwing that kind of shade at Katt Williams in the first place? Well, according to the word on the street, Samuel L. Jackson dropped the real reason, and it's wild. He allegedly said both Steve and Cedric were straight up shook of Katt. Not because he was going to fight them or cause a scene, but because they knew he could steal the whole room's energy with just one line. In fact, if you rewind that clip, you'll catch Steve Harvey saying something that hits different now. "Suh, I'm terrified." At first, it sounded like a joke, but Samuel L. Jackson reportedly pointed out that it was the truth hidden in plain sight. Steve wasn't just being dramatic, he was scared that Katt Williams was about to take over. According to what Samuel L. Jackson supposedly laid out, the real reason Steve Harvey and Cedric the Entertainer were acting so funny around Katt Williams? Simple. They know deep down, Katt's the better comedian, hands down, and Katt didn't shy away from saying it either. In that bombshell interview with Shannon Sharpe, he straight up said he destroyed Steve Harvey back in the day during a comedy showdown. That moment, it happened during the 2008 Championship of Comedy. Now, technically, the event wasn't billed as a one-on-one battle, but Katt wasn't having it. Word is, he was fed up with Steve's slick moves and decided to turn it into a personal comedy war. Katt went straight for the jugular. On stage, he clowned Steve hard, cracking jokes about how Steve wasn't rocking real hair, but wearing a full-blown man wig. The kicker? Most people had no clue Steve was bald. For years, he had that flawless high-top fade, always lined up perfect on every TV appearance. It wasn't just a hairstyle, it was a signature look. Back then, folks, especially young dudes struggling with fading hairlines, looked up to Steve's hair like it was gold. His lineup was so clean, it gave him this aura, like the cool uncle who had it all together. People said he was one of the sharpest looking brothers in Hollywood. That fade had folks turning heads every time he stepped into a room. So when Katt started poking fun at it, calling it out as fake, that hit different, real different. He didn't just roast a hairstyle, he poked at Steve's whole image, confidence, and swagger. Insiders say it might have knocked Steve's self-esteem more than he let on. We don't know exactly how Steve took all that heat, but facts are facts. Not long after that battle, the wig was gone. Steve ditched the hairpiece and switched it up with a clean-shaved look, rocking that bald dome proudly now. And yeah, it pairs slick with that sharp mustache he's always had, but still, Katt definitely left his mark. Steve Harvey, according to Katt Williams, wasn't just wearing a wig on his head, he was hiding behind it. Katt claimed his words hit Steve so hard that it made him quit stand-up altogether. Said he couldn't pull himself together to even face a crowd again. And if that's true, then it explains everything about why Steve still gets tight whenever Katt's name pops up. So when Samuel L. Jackson supposedly said Steve gets all stiff and uneasy anytime Katt walks in the room, it tracks. I mean, come on. If the guy who ended your stand-up career strolls in with a mic in hand, you'd be sweating too. That nervous energy Steve showed at the 2017 Def Comedy Jam 25 when Dave Chappelle cracked a joke about Katt makes total sense now. That wasn't nerves, that was fear. Now, when it comes to Cedric the Entertainer, his behavior at that same 2017 show was a little more low-key. He looked uneasy, couldn't wait for the energy to shift away from Katt. But there's a deeper layer here, and it's rooted in some serious behind-the-scenes tension. Most fans had no idea there was even beef between Cedric and Katt until Katt spilled all the tea in that legendary Club Shay Shay interview. He laid it all out, said Cedric straight up stole one of his best jokes, even after being warned not to. The joke in question? One of Katt's biggest hits from BET's Comic View back in 1998. It was so good that BET used it in promos for the next season. That wasn't just a throwaway bit, it was a career changer. But Katt said Cedric thought he was just some no-name up-and-comer and figured he could snatch the joke without anyone noticing. On Club Shay Shay, Katt explained, "He thought that I was just a no-name comedian and that he could take this joke and nobody would know. But Katt had already done it twice on national TV, and the crowd loved it." He said Cedric saw him perform that same joke live at the Comedy Store, and that's when things got shady. After the show wrapped, Katt says Cedric pulled up backstage with a big smile, dapped him up, and praised his performance like it was all love. He told Katt how much he loved that last joke, only to jack it later and make it part of his own routine. That wasn't just some throwaway bit. Katt said loud and clear, "That was my best joke, my final joke, my closing act." Katt broke it down. In 1998, he did the bit live on Comic View, crushed it, and had the crowd rolling. Cedric saw it go down at the Comedy Store. He was right there in the audience. Then after the show, he walked up, gave props, and told Katt how hilarious the joke was. Fast forward 2 years later, and boom, Cedric's on the Kings of Comedy tour, closing his set with that exact same joke, word for word. The only thing he changed? Katt's car became a spaceship. That's it. Katt said it wasn't even a remix, it was a straight copy. But Katt didn't stop at the stolen joke. He lit into Cedric's whole image, calling him a walrus with no talent. He clowned Cedric for not being able to sing, dance, or write his own material. Then he went in harder, saying Cedric dropped 4 comedy specials and they were so bad that you can't even find them on Netflix or Tubi. Harsh? Definitely. But Katt seemed dead serious. When you stack these claims next to the other bombs Katt has dropped, it starts to paint a darker picture. He said before that Cedric and Steve Harvey weren't just shady to him, they were fake toward Bernie Mac too. Katt accused them, and Ricky Smiley, of smiling in Bernie's face while secretly hating on him behind closed doors. According to Katt, they pretended to be Bernie's boys but worked against him behind the scenes. He even called out Steve Harvey directly, saying he was jealous of Bernie's acting skills. Mad because the studios weren't checking for him the same way? Katt snapped, "This the same dude that hated on Bernie Mac with the same thing. There's 30,000 new scripts in Hollywood every year. Not one of them asked for a country bumpkin black dude that can't talk good and look like Mr. Potato Head." That's what Katt Williams said Steve Harvey looked like, and he didn't stop there. Katt said straight up, "In this business, you gotta have range." And according to him, Steve and his crew were doing everything they could to block Bernie Mac from getting his shine. But it didn't go the way they planned. Katt claimed that during the Kings of Comedy tour, the crew tried to bury Bernie by making him open the show and put Steve on last, assuming he was the big closer. But when the footage hit the editing room, the producers saw what time it was and flipped the order. Bernie was too good to go first. They gave him the closing spot because he killed it, no question. At first, it all sounded like just another wild claim, until DJ Ed Lover stepped in and backed Katt's story all the way up. Ed Lover, who was tight with Bernie Mac until the end, said Bernie himself told him the same exact thing. And it didn't stop there. Ed said Bernie personally told him that Steve Harvey tried to snatch the Ocean's 11 role from him. Katt had mentioned it before, and now Ed was confirming it. "Bernie told me out of his own mouth," Ed said. "I believe Bernie Mac when he said Steve Harvey hated on him." That kind of confirmation hit hard and made folks really start connecting the dots. This is the same pattern Samuel L. Jackson was reportedly pointing out. According to him, guys like Steve and others in that circle ran the comedy scene like a secret club. They pushed out anyone who didn't fall in line, and if you had talent, even worse, they'd allegedly steal your material, call producers behind your back, and work every angle to make sure they stayed center stage. Bernie Mac knew what was going on, but being the professional he was, he stayed focused on his grind. He didn't clap back, he let his work speak for itself. But outspoken voices like Katt Williams, they're not built to stay silent. If something shady is going down, Katt's calling it out, loud. And maybe that's the real reason Steve Harvey and his crew stay shook when Katt's around. He's not afraid to pull the curtain back, and he won't play nice. Here's where things get even messier. Turns out Katt Williams isn't the only one who's put Steve Harvey on blast for shady moves in the comedy world. Another respected name, veteran comedian Mark Curry, also came forward, accusing Steve of straight up stealing one of his jokes and sliding it into his own routine. Mark said he found out in the wildest way. He was chilling at home when a friend called him up and told him, "Yo, turn on the TV, right now." So he flipped to the channel and boom, there was Steve Harvey, live on air, performing one of Mark's old classic bits. Curry said he first performed that joke back in 1999 during his own Comedy Central stand-up special. But now here was Steve using it like it was his own. The joke? a Halloween story about growing up broke and wearing some ridiculous DIY costumes for trick-or-treating. Fans quickly tracked both sets down, and the routines were almost identical. But Steve wasn't having it. He denied everything, firing back at Mark with, "I never stole a joke in 35 years. Come to me like a man and tell me what the joke is." He also said the only reason he even responded was because Mark kept talking too much. Still, fans weren't buying Steve's defense. They dug up the receipts. And the Halloween joke did pop up on Steve's show Little Big Shots, where he told almost the same story about growing up without money and rocking wild costumes on Halloween night. It wasn't a coincidence, it was a copy-paste. Later, in an interview with Willie D on his podcast Willie D Live, Mark Curry opened up more. He said Steve wasn't even trying to make money off the joke. He was trying to be him. That's right, Mark said Steve Harvey wanted to be Mark Curry. At first, Mark didn't even say Steve's name directly. He talked about how joke stealing runs rampant in comedy these days, kind of like what happens in the rap game. But unlike music, stand-up is personal. Your material is your voice. So when another comic snatches your work, it puts you in a corner. Either stay silent and take it or stand up and call it out. Mark Curry didn't hold back. He sent a clear warning straight to Steve Harvey's doorstep. "I'm a step to you if you're stealing my set. F you." That's what he told Willie D during their sit-down, but he made it clear, stepping to you didn't mean throwing hands, it meant calling you out, face to face, man to man. Curry takes serious pride in writing his own material. He said he puts real thought into crafting jokes that are unlike what other comics are doing. That originality, it makes it real easy to tell when someone's swiping from him, because his style stands out. And that's how he knew Steve Harvey had slipped parts of his act into his own routine. Talking about the whole situation, Curry said, "Take the Steve Harvey thing, it's a B move." He even tried to give Steve a little leeway, saying maybe it wasn't Steve directly, maybe one of his writers did the dirty work, but either way, he said they know. We all know whose material it is, and this wasn't about money. Curry admitted Steve's already rich, so the only reason to take his material? Envy. "You want some of me? You want to be me? That's why I say you ain't got enough money," Curry said. "I look at it like it's cool. I'm a G in this game. You want my style." But of course, Steve Harvey didn't just sit quiet. He clapped back hard, told Mark Curry to grow up, and accused him of making stuff up for attention. Steve brushed it all off, saying he hadn't even done stand-up since 2015, so there's no way he could be stealing anyone's material. "Mark Curry needs to grow up," Steve snapped. "Steve Harvey ain't been on stage since 2015. He doesn't know what he's talking about." Still, fans weren't so quick to side with Steve. A lot of them said Mark Curry might have been on point. They pointed out that Steve didn't just allegedly jack Curry's jokes, he even copied his whole TV show vibe. The similarities were too close for comfort, and people started asking, was Steve Harvey really just following Mark's blueprint? Hanging with Mr. Cooper? Yeah, that's the show at the center of it all. And guess what? Katt Williams backed up what fans have been whispering for years. During his explosive interview with Shannon Sharpe, Katt claimed that Steve Harvey didn't just get inspired by Mark Curry, he straight up copied him. He said the Steve Harvey show was basically a knockoff of Hangin' with Mr. Cooper, which ran from 1992 to 1997. Both shows had the same blueprint. A guy leaves his passion career behind and ends up teaching at a high school, surrounded by wild students and even wilder coworkers. The similarities weren't just a coincidence. Katt was convinced Steve watched Mark Curry do his thing and then just ran with the formula. Katt went even further, accusing Steve of copying Mark Curry's haircut too. That iconic high top fade, the same one everyone thought made Steve's lineup the cleanest in the game. Katt said that wasn't even his real hair, it was a man unit. Now Steve got a sitcom where he the principal and he wearing a suit, and that high top fade, Katt said, that's all Mark Curry's look. As mentioned before, this alleged comedy clique seems to have a pattern. Copy jokes, copy roles, and ride on the work of other comedians just to stay on top. And strangely enough, they all seem to share one thing. They don't want smoke with Katt Williams. Now, there's one more name in this group, and while he wasn't on stage at the 2017 Def Comedy Jam, Katt made sure to call him out too. Ricky Smiley. According to Katt, Ricky's been spreading lies about landing the Money Mike role in Friday After Next before Katt got it. Ricky Smiley told his version of the story during his own interview on Club Shay Shay, claiming he was supposed to play Money Mike first. But Katt shut that down real quick, calling it completely false. According to him, that role was never up for grabs. Money Mike was always his, and Ricky was just trying to insert himself into the narrative. Ricky Smiley went on national platforms telling folks he was supposed to play Money Mike and that Katt Williams was just lined up to play Santa Claus. Katt couldn't believe it. He clapped back, saying he and 200 other black comedians all auditioned for the role of Money Mike out in LA. So you're saying all 201 of us were wasting our time while you already had the part and shot it in 4 days? Katt asked, calling out the obvious cap. Then Katt dropped something even heavier. He claimed the original script for Friday After Next had a wild R-rated scene, one where a group of men assaulted Money Mike in a bathroom as revenge for something he did. Katt said Ricky was fine with that scene and was ready to shoot it if he had landed the role, but when Katt got the part and read that script, he wasn't having it. In front of producers, studios, and everybody with power in the room, Katt took a stand. He told them straight up, if we're talking about comedy, that's where I have pull. And forcing yourself on someone? That ain't ever funny, not in any context. It was Katt's first big film, and he risked it all to shut that scene down. He said that was the difference between him and Ricky Smiley. One was standing on comedy principles, the other just wanted the role. Katt described Ricky walking around the set with his chest out, bragging that he was already a radio star, a movie star, and a stand-up comic, basically acting like he deserved the role more than Katt did. That energy rubbed Katt the wrong way. So much so that he added a clause in his contract he would never work with Ricky Smiley again, unless Smiley wore a dress. No joke. And what happened next? Ricky's next big movie role was in Sunday, where he played none other than Bernice Jenkins, an old church lady in a dress. Katt Williams didn't just throw shade, he came with receipts. While sipping liquor during the interview, he doubled down, saying, he was so out of line that I put it in my contract. I won't work with Ricky Smiley again unless he's in a dress. And what happened next? Ricky's very next film was First Sunday, and yes, he did wear a dress. Katt didn't let that slide either. He said with full confidence, it was in my contract. If what Katt is saying is true, that he had that kind of pull over Smiley's career, then it makes perfect sense why Samuel L. Jackson allegedly said Ricky was scared of him. I mean, if one dude can block your entire Hollywood bag with a single clause, that's real power. And that kind of power scares people. But Ricky Smiley wasn't staying silent either. He jumped on his Ricky Smiley morning show on January 4th and shut down everything Katt said. According to him, he had nothing but love for Katt and his role in Friday After Next. Ricky claimed the director of the film, David E. Talbert, personally asked him to play the role of Bernice Jenkins. He gave props to Katt for how he crushed it as Money Mike and said things had simply changed during casting. I auditioned for the role of Money Mike, not Santa Claus, Ricky said. That's the honest-to-God truth. He also explained that the original concept for the Money Mike character wasn't even what ended up in the final cut. According to Ricky, the character was originally written as a panhandler who hung out in a strip mall parking lot, not a flashy, sharp-talking pimp. He gave credit to Katt and the producers for flipping the script and making the role iconic. As for Katt's claim about the contract, Ricky shot it down completely. He said no such contract ever existed, calling it an outrageous lie. He seemed genuinely disappointed that Katt would take things that far publicly and just make stuff up. Then he gave his side of why he wore a dress in his next film. Ricky Smiley made it clear. Nobody forced him into a dress. He said it was his own decision and he had no shame about it. If wearing that dress meant putting food on the table and keeping his family good, he was down for it. Plain and simple. Smiley backed his move by pointing to comedy legends who'd done the same. He mentioned Flip Wilson playing Geraldine, Richard Pryor in some sketch characters, Jamie Foxx as Wanda, Martin Lawrence as Shanae, and Tyler Perry with his Medea legacy. I did Bernice Jenkins, he said, listing himself among those who stepped into wild characters for the sake of comedy. This was for laughs, for entertainment, Ricky explained. It ain't about being comfortable in the role. Ain't nobody dying to put on a dress, but that doesn't mean it messes with my manhood. He wanted folks to know that doing a funny character didn't mean he was any less of a man. Still, not everybody was convinced. A lot of fans felt like something deeper was going on behind the scenes. Some believed that Hollywood pushes certain comedians to put on dresses as part of a hidden agenda, like an initiation into something bigger and darker. They didn't buy that it was just about comedy. They believed these moments were meant to humble black men in the industry, or worse, make a mockery of them. And if Katt Williams really put Ricky Smiley in that position. If he had that much power to play puppet master behind the scenes, then it shows just how strong his influence in the comedy world really is. That might be exactly why some folks in the game are shook when his name comes up. It also explains why Dave Chappelle gave Katt his flowers during the 2017 Def Comedy Jam celebration, even though Katt was just sitting in the audience. That shout out wasn't random, it was respect. Chappelle knew what time it was. He saw the battles Katt had fought and won. Dave Chappelle didn't just shout out Katt Williams for nothing. He saw what most couldn't. He recognized the real power Katt held in an industry full of smoke and mirrors. A man small in size but larger than life when it comes to influence and truth-telling. While Katt sat cool in the audience, legends were giving him his due. Meanwhile, Cedric the Entertainer and Steve Harvey looked shook, not because of what was said, but because deep down, they might have been wondering, are we next? Next to get exposed? Next to put on the dress? Only time will tell, but their nervous glances said enough. And with that, we're wrapping it up right here. If you made it this far, you already know this one was a ride. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more jaw-dropping stories, real talk, and no fluff. I've got more heat coming your way. See you on the next one.